Now that we've taken out the custom error reporting in our framework code, remember over here, if we look at our old version of framework.php, we did a try catch block in order to catch any exceptions and return values based on that. So how do we trigger exceptions now? Well, let's take a look at how to do that with the new HTTP kernel that we're using instead of our custom framework. So let's jump to the resource pack directory and open up step 63 called adding listener for custom error handling. We'll copy this code and paste it over the code in front.php and save it. Let's compare this front.php code to our previous front.php. So I'll compare 62 with 63 over in my file comparison tool. Okay, this is where we add our subscriber. So we do the add subscriber to our dispatcher, and we're going to pass in an exception listener, which is part of the event listener component. And what we're passing in is a valid callback. In this case, error handler is a variable that's been assigned to this anonymous function. It's going to take an instance of the flatten exception class, and you can see here as we work with exception that it works very similarly to our exceptions in previous examples. We can use get message in order to get the text. We can use get status code in order to get the status code. So what this function does first is set up a textual message that says something went wrong, and then it grabs the message of the exception. And finally, it returns a new response object, and it's going to take the message and a status code. So this will basically override our response from the framework. These additional commented outlines here demonstrate a couple of additional tools that you can incorporate using subscribers with classes that already exist in the components that we already have. For example, we can add a response listener and set the character encoding, which will basically do what response prepare does. And if we wanted to add support for a streamed response, we could do that with the streamed response listener. Okay, but back to our existing subscriber here. Let's see this in action. So in order to trigger this, we have to add an exception. I think it makes sense to add a new exception for when somebody passes a negative value to our leap year calculator, because those really aren't valid. So let's go back to our resource pack directory and open up the 64th step called leap year controller PHP, adding error for negative values. And we'll copy this code and paste it over our leap year controller and save it. So the only thing we've added here is this: if year is less than 0, throw new exception. The year needs to be a positive number. If we jump back to our browser and refresh, everything looks good, but let's add a negative number for the value that we're passing in through the URL, -400. Okay, now we see something went wrong. The year needs to be a positive number. So this basically killed our script by presenting a new response object with our error, but we have a lot of control over how we present this now. It's not just a big fatal error that's difficult to look at. It's something we can incorporate with the look and feel of our application.